Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
There's your long ball. Stretch. You can put it on the board. Yes!
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from the AMP.TV mobile studios here in fabulous Las Vegas. That's AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you in part by Legal Shield, providing legal protection and peace of mind. Legal Shield can help with traffic tickets, texting and driving, DUIs, court appearances, even contracts given to people they don't understand, plus a whole lot more. For more information, contact Legal Shield at 213-245-1305. That's 213-245-1305. Again, 213-245-1305. Or visit them online for more information at nocourt.us. That's nocourt.us. A little delayed kung fu applause. Kind of like if you're watching a kung fu movie. That's good stuff. All right, and a big welcome to everybody listening in on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. Those listening right here in Las Vegas on Magic 97.9 FM, as well as Talk 1490 WIRB in Southern Alabama and the Florida Panhandle. Everybody watching us on AMP TV and Hotel Television, welcome in, as well as those streaming at TheSportsCircus.com. I think we've covered just about everybody, maybe even those on the moon. And the reason we have so many with us today is because we have a very special guest. As a matter of fact, we're going to let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
Hey, Sal. I'm Chris Christian. I've been involved in music business for most of my life, but the last 10 years also involved in professional sports in the WNBA.
All right. So welcome in, Chris.
Thanks, Sal.
With this ridiculous background, it would probably take the entire segment to give a better understanding of Chris. But let me just run down a couple things here just because we can. Of course, owner, WNBA Dallas Wings, four-time Grammy and Dove Award winner, singer, songwriter, producer, author. Yes, author. And by the way, from the song side of things, his songs have been recorded by Elvis, Olivia Newton-John, Hall & Oates, Natalie Cole, Sheena Easton, the Pointer Sisters, Al Jarreau, the Carpenters, Amy Grant, Patty Austin, Dionne Warwick, America, the Imperials. This is ridiculous. Marilyn McCoo, Cheryl Ladd even. Remember Charlie's Angels? Even Cheryl Ladd. And the list goes on and on. Oh, yeah, let's not forget Pat Boone and, of course, Donny Osmond. This is crazy. Outside of that, he has produced the Pointer Sisters, Patty Austin, Al Jarreau, Natalie Cole, Amy Grant, the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to get back to that in just a moment. We're going to start with that one. B.J. Thomas, Dan Peek, B.W. Stevenson, Debbie Boone, Steve Archer, and on and on and on and on we go. I'll tell you what, I want to get right to the Dallas Cowboys because that's the most unusual fit on this list. I mean, Chris, you've had such an interesting background, but this is the first place we're starting right now because the first thing our listeners think of probably out of that is the Dallas Cowboys. They say it's America's team. I think it's kind of the world's team at this point.
Well, they are, and I grew up in Abilene, Texas, and so I was a huge Cowboy fan, laid on the floor with my dad. He had his little Cowboy hat. We wore it every game. We based our whole week around when the Cowboys play. And so I was a big fan. When I went to L.A. and had a hit record, Robert Kardashian was my manager, and we did all that. Then when that was over, then I came back to Dallas and I bought a movie studio. And then I got to know Danny White real well. We were real good friends. He was the quarterback of the Cowboys at that time. And Danny always wanted to be a singer. And so one night at dinner, it was shortly after the Super Bowl shuffle with the Chicago Bears. It kind of taken the nation by storm. And so Danny said, "Well, I'd like to make a record." And I said, "Well, I'd like to meet all the Cowboys." And so we just kind of came up with an idea. Why don't we do a Christmas album with the Dallas Cowboys? You said, "You do all the music and I'll get the Cowboys." And so we did a Dallas Cowboys Christmas in 1985. And then that did so well and gave all the proceeds to the North Texas Food Bank, a charity. And that did so well that we did it also in '86. And now some of the videos from that, which obviously came out in VHS originally, but now I have it mastered in a high quality format. But we've got Roger Staubach, Bob Hayes, Bob Lilly, Danny White, Herschel Walker, Tony Dorsett, you name it. And it's pretty classic video footage right now. And it was just a ball. They had a great time doing it. I had a great time doing it. And we raised a lot of money for a good cause.
That's fantastic. And mind you, of course, you caught my interest when you said the Super Bowl shuffle. Me being a Chicago guy, boy, that was a glorious time for everybody that was either born or raised there or was living there. And well, we had this conversation a little while back with a couple of defensive stars from the NFL, and we had Dana Stubblefield on, a 3-time Super Bowl champion with the 49ers. And it's funny because he kept saying those Dallas Cowboys kept getting in the way of them winning even more championships, because that 49ers team was really, really good. But it was the Cowboys and that big line with Larry Allen and the boys. Those guys kept getting in their way. It was amazing.
Well, we got in their way with music videos too. We maybe not in their way, but we kind of took their lead and did our own.
Right. All right, so tell us a little bit more about, I want to know a little bit more about the WNBA. Let's stick with the sports side of it for a minute, because we could do a whole library on the music side. I want to know more about the WNBA. How'd you actually get started, or how'd you get the idea of, say, you know what, I want to be involved in this?
My youngest daughter was one of the best basketball players in the nation around 2010, 2011 in high school. In fact, you might remember, we could do a whole nother show on this one game she played in that was probably the most talked about on the media worldwide of any high school game of all time. Dallas Covenant beat Dallas Academy 100-0. And the media just went crazy. I mean, outside the lines, ESPN, blogs. In fact, I think at one time it was the fifth most hit story of the Dallas Morning News of all time. And in that year, it got more hits than the Dallas Cowboys in that particular year. So It was a big game. Anyway, we followed her in her games, and my wife and I just loved watching women's sports because our daughter was playing women's basketball. And so we knew she went on to college, got recruited by everybody, but we knew at some point she was not going to continue playing basketball. And so I met a guy named Bill Cameron. Well, it actually starts before that. She was recruited at Rice University, and I got a call from the WNBA president, and Donna Orender at the time, and she said, would you like to buy the Houston franchise? I said, no, I don't want to buy the Houston franchise, but if you ever wanted to have a Dallas team, I'd be interested. So she said, well, come up to a playoff game. So I went to a playoff game that year at the WNBA playoffs, and I met a guy named Bill Cameron, and he was moving the Detroit Shock to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it became the Tulsa Shock. So Bill just said, hey, you want to jump in the back seat with me and, just kind of get to know a little bit. Then if you ever have a chance to be involved in a Dallas team, you'll already have some experience. I thought, well, that sounds kind of interesting. And so I got involved with the Tulsa Shock about 12 years ago. And then about 3 years ago, Bill called and said, hey, why don't we move the Tulsa Shock down to Dallas? And I'd already been preparing for a franchise in Dallas if we ever had the chance of doing that. And I didn't know when the league would want to, if ever. But, I talked to Adam Silver and Mark Cuban, and they gave me the green light whenever the time was right. Mark was wonderful. Mark Cuban said, no, I don't want to do it. But because obviously if Mark wanted to have it, it'd be his team, He said, no, I don't want to do it, but if I can help you in any way, I'd love to see women's sports in Dallas. So he was very supportive. And it just turned out that we, I think May 15th, about 3 years ago, we had our first game as the Dallas Wings. And I'm the vice chairman and managing partner.
Folks, we're here with Chris Christian, owner of the Dallas Wings, from the WNBA, 4-time Grammy Award winner and Dove Award winner, singer-songwriter, producer, author as well. And welcome back in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates, Hotel Television, AMP TV as well. All right, so real quick, we're running on time in this segment, but I want you to start off by telling us a little bit about what does it take to move a franchise from one city to the other? And how do you handle the locals in that market? What do you tell them?
Well, it's very complicated. First of all, the league is very concerned that anytime they make a major move like that, that it be positive for the league. So there's a lot of criteria, and we had to get X dollars of potential sponsors, X owners to an X dollar amount. So they're not going to move a team and just try to figure out if they can find sponsors and owners. I mean, that's already got to be kind of set up. And I've been working on that for 4 or 5 years in case there was ever a Dallas team. So when Bill said move it, he said, why don't you take all the legwork and groundwork you've done and, let's put it together. And that's what we decided to do. So they're very cautious. But obviously Tulsa has, I think, 600,000 people, and Dallas-Fort Worth has 7 or 8 million people. And Dallas,
right.
And Dallas-Fort Worth.
It makes sense from a population standpoint, for sure. Hey, listen, I want you to hold that thought, Chris, because we're going to come back here in just a few minutes on the Sports Circus. Back here, folks, with Chris Christian. Is a very interesting guy. I'm telling you, we could do a regular day-to-day show with this guy because it's not the stories, it's the experience. And you're going to hear a little bit more when we come back here on the Circus. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-320-2751. 800-320-2751. 800-320-2751. That's 800-320-2751.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. That's 800-298-3173.
I'm your Ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus TheSportsCircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from the AMP.TV mobile studios here in fabulous Las Vegas. That's AAMP.TV. This segment is brought to you in part by the American Business Trust Company, helping companies with strategies, sales and marketing, capital resources, and establishing business with a presence either online or physically with a storefront. They decide. For more information, contact abtrustco.com. That's ABTRUSTCO, AbTrustCo. That's the American Business Trust Company. Contact them online or give them a call at 657-600-1876. That's the American Business Trust Company, 657-600-1876. And welcome into everybody listening in on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, actually from Honolulu all the way down to the greater Houston market, all the way up to the greater Boston market, and so forth and so on. And a big welcome back to everybody listening in right here on Magic 97.9 FM in Las Vegas. Back here with Chris Christian, WNBA Dallas Wings owner, four-time Grammy and Dove Award winner, singer, songwriter, producer, tank commander, author. He's done it all. And when we came back, by the way, welcome back, Chris.
Thank you, Sal.
And I had to throw that back in there too. So in our last segment, I asked you how you got into the WNBA, and of course your daughter with the 100-0 game. I want to touch on that in just a minute. But we left off talking about moving a franchise, a professional franchise from Tulsa to Dallas, right? And so you had already laid the groundwork on doing such work previously, and a lot of people don't know what it takes, including myself, to move a professional franchise. Touch upon that real quick and expand, please.
Well, the league has a lot of requirements, and I'm not going to go into what they are, but there's a lot of requirements to make sure there's a fan base, there's sponsorships, there's fans, and there's media opportunities, all those things, because they want to make sure if they're going to move any team that it go to a place that's successful.
Okay, so when it came time to announce the move, what sort of resistance were you met with from the audience? I'm saying the audience from Tulsa.
Well, they were not happy about the team. Obviously, any city I think losing a sports team is probably not right. Too thrilled. Obviously, but in Dallas and LA are the two hotbeds for women's basketball in the nation. Some of the great players that we all know about and have heard about came from those places. Tamika Catchings came from the Dallas area, and I can give you a lot of examples. But, there was a great enthusiasm and excitement in Dallas, Fort Worth for that, because it was really the Metroplex. The Metroplex is the 7 million some odd people in that area. And so it was well received in Dallas, and I'm sure the people in Tulsa were disappointed.
Well, I would imagine being in a city, look, I've been in Los Angeles where they lost the Rams and the Raiders at one point. Then they got the Rams back, but then they didn't get the Raiders back, but then they got the Chargers. It's been a carousel watching teams in the NFL. Now, do we see a lot of that in the WNBA? Have we seen a lot of teams change cities?
Not really, not that much. The league is about 22, 23 years old. And what most people don't realize is that I think the NBA is 55, 60 years old, something like that. And so we're only a small fraction of the time, but it's the longest running professional women's sports league there is. It's very solid, and I think there's not a lot of teams moving around, but I think there's really importance to make the teams that exist now very solid. And
well, they're spoken like an ambassador of the league, not just whether you have a business interest in it. This is honestly, I prefer to watch the women's games because it's a pure game. They know how to shoot. They know how to defend. You don't get a bunch of slam dunks. And there's a real the game of basketball is actually viewable, in my opinion. So I actually get to see the game fundamentally played. It's so much, for me, it's so much more interesting. And I know a lot of people say, well, they're not slamming, they're not throwing the ball down and this, that. There's not these big men. No, but there are players that know how to play the game as it was intended to play. Would you agree to that?
Well, I totally agree with that. It's very strategic. It's very play-oriented, strategic-oriented. You know, one thing I don't think most people realize is these are the top 144 greatest female athletes in the world. And they're also probably among the most educated in the world because they usually come from Stanford and Tennessee and UConn. And, you know, most of them come from very highly rated universities. So they're very educated, very articulate, and many are very beautiful, you know. So, and everyone I've met's been very nice and very friendly. And they don't, and actually after the games, we have 2 or 3 players that come up after each game, after they've gone to the locker room and cleaned up a little bit, and they sign autographs and talk to the fans. So they're very approachable too. You don't see that in NBA games too often.
Well, that's great. And another thing we don't hear of is a lot of, in these times, that is, in basketball and the NBA, let's face it, most of these kids are one and done. Most of the players are just one and done kids. We don't see the educated players as much as the women, as you had just said. And frankly, I'd like to see a higher IQ on and off the court.
Right. Well, you know, it's a great advantage of the WNBA that they are very educated, articulate, and very willing to, just like I said, come out after the game, meet the fans, and have engagement with them. And I think that's a wonderful part of our sport. I kind of have this saying. A lot of people hadn't been to a game, and I asked one guy at my golf club. I said, "You want to go to the WNBA game this Saturday?" He said, "No, I'm watching my grandkids." I said, "Perfect." So bring your grandkids. So he said, "Well, they probably won't want to go." He had 3 grandsons. Okay, so he's thinking they're going to just nah. So they said, "Yeah, Dad, Granddad, let's go." And so he brought them, and he is every time I see him, he played basketball at SMU, so he's a big basketball guy. And he came back and he said, every time I see him, he comes in. That was one of the greatest experiences that I've had with my grandsons. And his grandsons loved it. He loved it. So I have this saying, just go to one game.
That's right. That's how I look at it, too. And I've seen one game, and I'll have to tell you that, folks, it is a very different experience. We're here with Chris Christian, WNBA Dallas Wings owner, 4-time Grammy and Dove Award winner, singer, songwriter, producer, and welcome in to everybody on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates, iHeartRadio, and those watching on Hotel Television and AMP TV. So, Chris, as a principal in a professional sports team, a lot of the listeners, including myself, we don't know what it looks like from the day-to-day side of the business. How much time of your day does being a principal in an organization from professional sports, how much does that take out of your time versus the music business, which we're going to get into in just a moment?
Well, in the role that I'm in, it varies. Sometimes there's not much to do because we have a president CEO that manages the staff, and they do all the legwork and ticket sales and sponsorships and all that. Usually when I get involved is when there's some kind of an issue, a coach change, we're going to change the pricing of the tickets, or something like that. I'll get involved in those kind of discussions. But it doesn't take a lot of time on a year-round basis. But there are moments and there are times that it does consume. If there's an issue, it consumes some time at that point.
Okay, so you do get involved with some of the big decisions with coaching, for example. I was kind of wondering about that. I mean, how much say do you have when it comes to giving maybe the general manager as much latitude as possible to make the decisions that they need to? When do you step in?
Well, I think, a coaching change, the chairman, I'm the vice chairman, and then the president, CEO. We usually 3 discuss those kind of things. And I think it's just opinion. We try to come to a consensus, We try to come to we all talk about what our thoughts are and what we think would be the right thing to do. But in each case like that, we've always ended with, okay, this is what we need to do. So it's been, at the end, we've all come to the same conclusion.
Now, are most teams run that way? Do they have a collaborative effort with the general manager and the top brass of the organization, or is it just the GM?
Well, I think every team is run a little differently. Some of the top owners are less involved. Some are more involved. It just depends on the team. But in our case, I usually get involved with my perspective on things if it's, like I said, coach change or some major change. And of course, we're spending quite a few calls now talking about the future of games, which we don't know yet. I mean, there's a lot of options and there's no answers, but we're on top of it. And we've had multiple calls, pretty ongoingly about what the options are, and all the owners have chimed in of what their thoughts are on that.
Right. Well, I asked that question here in our last 30 seconds. I asked that question because in football, we've seen owners get in the way of certain decisions. In baseball, going back to the Yankees with the Steinbrenners, and what we have certainly seen that. It's been a very interesting ride. I had to ask that question because in some cases, you'll see an owner sometimes will hinder the process. I wouldn't say stand in the way. It's their team. But I would say sometimes from the fans' perspective, it kind of muddies the water. That's why I went there. Folks, we're going to be back here with Chris Christian in just a few minutes here on the Sports Circus. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere. Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this commercial right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935. Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you're trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more.
800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. That's 800-957-6209.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal from the live amp.tv mobile studios. That's AAMP.tv. We move this bubble around town, folks, so sometimes we have distractions from the outside. People knock on the glass. We're in this glass bubble, if you see. Nonetheless, so sometime, remember, this is live. Anything could happen. So we are here in fabulous Las Vegas at, well, I can't tell you disclose location. You're going to have to guess. Go ahead and put it on the chat box, if you will, on AMP TV. And if you guess it right, then we'll throw you some kind of a prize. Haven't figured out what that's going to be yet. All right, folks, make sure you check out TheSportsCircus.com for all of our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our podcast, as well as our partners. We have some fantastic partners with the Sports Circus. A lot of great charities are represented. In fact, one of our partners is the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out. They have a wonderful baseball team, fantastic events, great softball team for the ladies, and volleyball and soccer and so forth. And they're adding basketball soon, so make sure you check them out. And the gentleman with us knows a little something about basketball as a WNBA owner from the Dallas Wings, Chris Christian, 4-time Grammy and Dove Award winner, singer, songwriter, producer, and author. Welcome back into the show, Chris.
Thanks, Sal.
All right, so we left off at one juncture, but I'm going to take a spin here. Let's make a right turn, and let's talk a little bit about the author side. Now, that's a really interesting mix to have, but we're going to focus on author. Tell us about your author background.
Well, it really started out where I was named after Lon Christian Smith, my great-grandfather, and I started trying to find out things about him, and other than he was a very poor growing up and became a very wealthy cotton farmer, I didn't know anything else. So I just started writing out my story, and I've just had such incredible opportunities in the music business, starting out with Elvis, Olivia Newton-John, Amy Grant, B.J. Thomas, Kardashians, movie studios, all that stuff. I just wanted to put the stories down so my future generations could know what the old man did, Well, as it kind of evolved into a book, and the book is called A Grandmother's Prayer, and Moments in a Music Life. And so it really talks about how I started out in a small town in Abilene, Texas in the 4th grade. My teacher had a son, Dal Patterson, who had a song on the radio, and I asked her if he would come sing it in class. And when Dal Patterson came, he looked like Ricky Nelson and Elvis. And halfway through his song, I was in the 4th grade. I just said, that's what I want to do. And so from that point on, I bought ukuleles, guitars. I was a music guy from the 4th grade. So I went to Nashville with $100. My dad kind of gave me the idea. He said, my grandfather founded a bank in Abilene, and I figured I'd go to work at the bank because nobody in Abilene goes to the music business. So he said, no, I go to Nashville. You like that music thing. See what that music thing's all about. So he gave me $100. And then all these stories are in the book, and they're just amazing stories, from meeting Elvis for the first. Elvis has recorded a song I wrote in high school. I never played Elvis the song. I never met Elvis, and it's the first recording I ever had of any song I ever recorded. So I started off with Elvis Presley, and then later met him and became part of a group that he invited to Memphian theaters and malls to shut down from time to time. And then and then that's one of the stories. And Olivia Newton-John's producer calls and said, hey, we want to produce a record in the United States. So I said, sure, I'll help you. And so I set up the whole session. She and John Farrar, our producer, stayed with us. And then I was asked to do B.J. Thomas, the second record I'd ever produced. He was a huge pop star. That record became a Christian record called Home Where I Belong that is now platinum. And then they said, well, we want you to find a bunch more artists like that do these pop Christian songs. So then I signed a girl that goes to church named Amy Grant when she was 15 years old. And now it's 30, 40 million records later. And then I said, after those years, I said, I want to go to LA, see if I can do it with the big guys. First guy I meet there is Robert Kardashian, who gets me, calls Neil Bogart. First artist signed on Boardwalk. Bob Gaudio, who's Jersey Boys, he gets him as a producer. And these stories are just like, at the time, I just thought it was cool. But I look back, and it's impossible. Of these 20 things, the chances of one of them happening is just so impossible. So that's what the book's all about all these stories and the people I've just mentioned. And it's called A Grandmother's Prayer, Moments in a Music Life.
Sonar, what was the first thing that stood out that he said when he started going through this laundry list This is crazy.
Well, I've been to an Amy Grant concert, so I appreciate you supporting her, because otherwise I couldn't have gone.
Well, thank you for attending.
Right. The first thing that stood out to me was, well, the first thing you said was, oh, I wrote a song with Elvis. I mean, the first thing you said was Elvis. Like, what? And you were 15?
Well, I was a junior in high school. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. That's crazy. But
I didn't write the
best part
song.
about it is, go ahead.
I didn't write the song for Elvis. I was just writing a song in high school. And then through a set of events, a guy in Nashville heard that song, and he was Cheryl Nielsen. He became an Elvis background singer for Elvis. And Elvis, as he often did, he loved to sing gospel songs about 2 a.m., 3 a.m. He'd get people around the piano and sing. And when he did that, at the end, he raised his hand and he said, somebody sing me some new songs. Somebody sing me some new songs. So Cheryl, my friend, singing my song, Love Song of the Year. I'd not met Elvis. I didn't write the song for Elvis. And when Cheryl came back on Saturday morning and he called me, he came back to Nashville and he called me, he said, dude, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? I think Elvis is going to record your song, Love Song of the Year. I said, what? So, and sure enough, he did. And then I was working for Wayne Newton up at the top of at the Sands Hotel, and Elvis came to town and called and invited me to come up to his opening night. And, that was just an incredible story about meeting Elvis for the first time.
That's crazy. Folks, we're here with Chris Christian, 4-time Grammy and Dove Award winner, singer, songwriter, producer. Welcome in to everybody watching on AMP TV, Hotel Television, and, of course, those listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. Chris, a very interesting way to kick off the music side of this. Now, you had just mentioned something about Las Vegas. Of course, that's right where we're at. And everybody listening in on Magic 97.9 FM, they're happy to hear these stories. But you had mentioned to me previously something about Howard Hughes. What can you tell me about that?
Well, I worked at Opryland, a theme park in Nashville. Wayne Newton came to do a TV special, and they wanted a banjo player. I was playing banjo in the Dixieland band, so they asked me to just lip banjo. I mean, they'd already recorded the music. I was just be on the Cumberland River with Wayne looking like I was playing. So we spent the whole day together during the shoot, because you shoot for 1 minute and you set lights for an hour and whatever. And then, so at the end of that day, Wayne said, well, why don't you come work for me in Vegas when Opryland's over? Well, I was new to Opryland. I'd only been in Abilene, Texas. Going to Vegas to me was like going to Mars. I mean, I said, well, so I just figured I wouldn't hear anything else about it. At the end of this Opryland season, I get a call from Mitch Greenberg, Wayne's manager, and he says, hey, Wayne wants you to come out and meet with him. So I flew out there, and Wayne offered me a job playing with him at the Sands, gave me a penthouse at the very top of the Sands Hotel, and, had a great time with him. And really loved working for Wayne. Wayne was a great guy. And so when I was with him, Walter Kane was the entertainment director for all the Howard Hughes hotels. And so he would often come over to Wayne's show, and I'd talk to him backstage and different times. So one time, I knew that Howard Hughes owned, the Sands. And I've never been afraid to ask anything. So I said, hey, Walter, any chance I can meet your boss? He said, I'll see what I can do. And so about 2 weeks later, Walter came by and he said, hey, come over to the Desert Inn after Wayne's show. I said, okay. So I went over. He put me in the green room with Bobby Gentry, Tallahassee Bridge,
Yep.
Had a big hit. And so I visited with her for 30 minutes or something, and we just hung out, and I still didn't know what was going to happen. So Walter comes back, knocks on the door and says, Chris, let's go. So we went up to the 9th floor of the Desert Inn, and it's where Howard Hughes had his residence. And I believe on the 8th floor, he had all of his businesses. Now remember this. Howard Hughes was like a Ross Perot, Mark Cuban guy, very known, very well known, very wealthy, but he wasn't iconic. He was just a very known, wealthy guy. And so we go down the hall, and he knocks on the door, and the door opens, and there's this screen on the door. I can't see past the screen, a mesh kind of screen. And Walter says, Mr. Hughes, this is Chris Christian. He really wanted to meet you. And I'm looking at this screen, and I said, well, Mr. Hughes, it's nice to meet you. And he said, well, nice to meet you too. And I just said, thank you so much for you, Walter, and Wayne, allowing me to work at one of your hotels. And he said, well, I've heard you're doing a good job. Is Wayne treating you okay? And are you enjoying it? So we had about a 5-minute discussion. Well, again, I'm talking to a man behind the screen. Well, then the door closed and we walked down the hall and leave. And I went back and I said, well, that was pretty strange. That was kind of weird. But then when everything came out about the iconic Mr. Hughes and the germophobic and the movie and all that, it all made total sense. You know, he didn't want to be seen. He was afraid of germs and those kind of things. And so I always thought that was strange until all this came out about his personal hygiene and all that. And that was... So when I was writing the book, I told the author, I just went through that story like I told you and went on to something else. He went, hold on, wait, did you say? I said, yeah, I didn't think about it really, except it was strange.
That's great stuff. All right, folks, we're going to be back here with Chris Christian and a mountain of great stories and a ton of experience. Grammy Dove Award winner 4 times, that is. Singer, songwriter, producer, author, tank commander, done it all. Back here in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Can't beat fun at the old ballpark, friends. High pop fly. That would be a home run in a phone booth. I don't know what the big deal about Cracker Jack is. Did you ever go and buy a pack of Cracker Jack thinking you'd get a prize and find no prize in the box? Here's the pitch. That might not sound important to some people, but when you're a little kid, especially from humble origin, and they cheat you out of a prize. There's a bouncing ball. Second baseman has a Barbary over to first. It's hard to think in laudatory terms of the product.
I think if there was an occasional box of Cracker Jacks that found no prizes for the little Harry Carey many years ago.
You got that right. And boy, when a box of Cracker Jack to me meant a lot of money. Here's a pitch, bounce foul. That's the most asinine marketing I've ever heard of. 1 ball, 1 strike. These guys say, well, you sing about Cracker Jack. I said that I only sing it because it's in the song. Here's a pitch foul back. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised, even to this day, some youngsters who buy a box of Cracker Jack don't find a prize in the box. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 out. Well, if you're going to talk about our congressman being crooked, here's a pitch foul out of play. Why not talk about commercial products that don't do what they represent to do? They told me when they hired me it was a temporary job. Born and raised in St. Louis, and you can imagine the Cardinals were my favorite team from the day I could remember. And all of a sudden, the miracle of life, I'm broadcasting Card games. I own the town and broadcast them for 25 years, and I thought they're going to give me a gold watch, and they gave me a pink slip. Then I went out to work for Charlie Finley for a year, and that's par for the course. Came to Chicago, and I was with the White Sox 11 years, and now with the Cubs. Never missed a game, never missed a time at bat, never missed a half inning that I was supposed to do. You know, Chicago is such a marvelous city. Hey, we got some Chicago people. You know, you never succeed in this business until you've had the experience of working with a terrible hangover. Not until you've been able to come through with flying colors under those circumstances can you consider yourself a professional. Lord knows, I've had more than my share of hangovers. There's a drive, way back. It might be, it could be, and it is. Holy cow! This crowd is wild.
Welcome back, everybody. Mike Jaminski here.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. Sal's given me an opportunity to just talk about a lot of things that's happened over the last 40 plus years. So, and they're pretty much all in this book that I put out called A Grandmother's Prayer. And it's on Amazon, and it's pretty much everywhere. But it's all the stories that I was able to put down and about how with Elvis and Olivia Newton-John and Kardashians and Amy Grant and B.J. Thomas. And one of the great things about it made me get back in touch with people like Olivia and talk to her, get back in touch with Chris and go meet her, and get back in touch with all these people. And that was just been one of the wonderful things about the book, is having to go back and say, hey, this is how I remember this. Is this how you remember it? So it's as accurate as possible. And also there's an hour interview on parables.tv, and that's on Apple and all the other apps too. But there's a whole hour interview that really talks about all these stories. It's interview-mentary, really. It's not a full documentary. We're working on that right now. But it's an interview-mentary, and really focused on pretty much the music side of things. So, Sal, thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk to your fans out there in radio and TV land.
All right, a big welcome back to everybody listening in on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, AMP TV, AAMP.TV, as well as Hotel Television. Folks, we're in 650,000 rooms in 198 markets from coast to coast. Everybody watching this can see us, and they can see that there's a gentleman back there with a whole wall of, I'm seeing some gold records and whatnot back there. And yeah, let's try to get that zoomed out view. So we've got all kinds of records up there. Listen, the one thing I want to ask you about, we're going to do another interview or 2 or 3 with you for sure. Who knows? We might end up with a regular daily show with you. Not really sure where we're going with this, but you had mentioned kind of a hot name out there to the mainstream media, and that was Kardashian. Tell everybody a little bit about that.
Well, when I went to L.A., a man named Randy Nicholson was a man I knew in Abilene, and I went to I'd already had some pretty good success in Nashville with Olivia and BJ and Amy and people like that. And I have 16 albums out, so I'd put out about 3 or 4. But I wanted to see if I could really do it with the big boys in L.A., but I didn't know anybody out there. So Randy said, I got this stockbroker named Joe Leach at Bear Stearns, and he might know somebody. So I met with Joe, and Joe says, I only know one person that's kind of in the music business. He's not really, but kind of. His name is Robert Kardashian, and I'll be glad to set up a lunch with him. I said, great. So I met Robert, had lunch. Robert owned Radio and Records, which was the main tip sheet that all the radio stations looked at to decide what to play per demographic, per size of audience, and so forth. And so that's why he said he was kind of in the music business. And so Robert and I became fast friends, became best friends. And then he heard some of the demos I was working on, writing songs with J.C. Crowley, who wrote Baby Come Back, and Gary Puckett, Kerry Chater from Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. We were writing songs. He said, these are great songs. You want me to get you a record deal? And remember, we were 6 months great friends. And I said, well, sure. And he said, hey, you want me to manage you? And I said, Robert, I didn't know you were a manager. He says, I'm not, but this would be a lot of fun. So Robert Kardashian was my manager. And in the book, Grandmother's Prayer, at the very end, I have the whole Robert Kardashian contract that we signed. And there's a picture in there. I don't know if Dennis has it or not, but of Robert and I signing the contract. And if you look at the small print in the contract, what's so interesting, there's one thing missing in the contract. It's how Robert gets paid. he didn't care about getting paid. He just thought this would be a lot of fun. So we became great friends. Obviously, our families became great friends. I mean, you know, I've got pictures of when Kim and Courtney were coming over our house at my 2-year-old daughter's birthday, and I think Kim and Courtney were like 4 and 6 or something like that. So, you know, I watched them grow up, and Robert was just my best friend of all time, and he was a great guy. I've got quite a few really funny stories. A lot of them are in the book, A Grandmother's Prayer, but he was just a wonderful guy, a wonderful friend, and I miss him today. And every time I go in a P.F. Chang's or a Cheesecake Factory, which he introduced me to, you know, I miss him.
Hey, there's the picture with the kids.
Oh, with the young kids?
Yeah, who's in that picture?
That's Kimberly Kardashian and Kourtney Kardashian, and then the blonde girl, the smaller girl, is my daughter Kourtney.
Oh, all right. This is crazy. Tell you what, I mean, everybody sees them on television. They don't know people say, well, they're famous for being famous, and people really don't know the background. They don't know their father's background, which you certainly have cleared things up. And thank you for that. A big round of applause for that. That's great. So you find yourself in this business. Now you've been on American Bandstand. You've been on Solid Gold. Tell us about the experience of being on American Bandstand the first time.
Well, I was in the group Cotton, Lloyd and Christian was the first national hit I had. We did a remake of I Go to Pieces, which was an old Peter and Gordon song. And it went top 10 here, and it was number one in a lot of countries. In England, it was a huge hit in England. So I was like 21 years old. And we did American Bandstand twice. So I met Dick Clark then. And then later, a few years later, when I had my own solo hit, I Want You, I Need You, that Bob Gaudio and Robert Kardashian and Neil Bogart put together, I did American Bandstand again just as a solo artist. And what I learned about Dick Clark, since I did it 3 times, what I was so impressed with him, the first time I did it, he came in and talked to everybody an hour before the show. Well, where are you from? Well, what are you doing? Well, how'd you get to Nashville and all that? The second time I did the show, he came in and said, hey, since the last time you're on the show, what's been up? I mean, what have you been doing with Cotton, Lloyd and Christian? How's the group been? Then the third time I did the show as a solo artist, he said, hey, I remember when you were here with Cotton, Lloyd and Christian, but now it's a solo artist. He started asking me questions. Why did you do a solo album? All this. And so I was always thinking, what a nice guy. He comes in every time, and he was Dick Clark. I mean, he is a major, major star, but he still came in an hour and did his homework. What I realized later, you do 2 songs on American Bandstand, and when I did my 2 songs, he walked up to do about a 2-minute interview in between the 2 performances. And what I realized he was doing, he was catching up of what had happened. So for that 2 minutes, he was up to speed with me, and he could ask intelligent questions. A true professional, a prince of a guy, nicest guy in the world, but even as big as he was, he could have had an intern go in there and find out something about Chris so I could ask him. That's what most people would do. Dick never did that. He came in and had a personal conversation, so that 2-hour interview was as meaningful as possible.
Folks, we're here with Chris Christian, singer, songwriter, producer, author, 4-time Grammy and Dove Award winner, owner, WNBA Dallas Wings. Back here with Chris. All right, so you have this incredible experience on American Bandstand. You've also been on Solid Gold, and you've really been all over the place. Now, I've seen a lot of the video. I've watched a lot of the video. There's a ton of stuff out there. Where can people find more on your musical background? Because we're going to talk a little bit more about that in some of the other shows we're going to do with you down the road.
Well, one place I'd mentioned parables.tv. There's an hour interview. It talks a lot about that. It has a lot of the music in it. Also, if you just go to Google and go Chris Christian, I mean, there's pages and pages and pages of YouTube. And, it's amazing. I look at some of these, and people put up their own videos to your songs. And one song, I Don't Know Why You Love Me, has 2 million views. And there's a song called Praise the Lord I did on the Imperials, and they have 1.2 million views, but I realized my version of the same song has 500, 600,000 views. So it's pretty easy to find on YouTube right now. And I'm working on a documentary based on the book, A Grandmother's Prayer and Moments in a Music Life. And it's going to be the story of all this put in some dramatic form, a docudrama probably with some reenactments of when I met Elvis and different people. And there'll be that there, but it's not hard to find my music. Spotify, Spotify is a big one, and Pandora, and they play it on Sirius, so it's not hard to find it.
Okay, well, that's good. All right, so now looking at the background, for everybody listening on radio, Chris is sitting in a room with a whole bunch of records on the wall. So we'll try to do the theater of the mind, right? Let's paint it from left to right. So we have an individual gold record. It looks like a gold record. And then as we move to the right, there's a whole mess of records. I think I see a platinum one up there. I'm not really sure. It's kind of hard to see. But tell us a little bit about your favorite record on your wall right now.
Well, I'm actually I'm actually at my home right now. I just got a few of them here. I have a barn. I call it a barnmuseum. It's about a 5,000 foot museum. It's got all the. It's got about 70 or 80 gold records and Dove awards and Grammy certificates, and it's got a little. When the Carpenters, when I met them when I was in college, it got all their signed autographs and stuff in it. So that's where they all are. I just put a few here that I had duplicates of. At the top, that's some Amy Grant. Let me get out of the way. That's an Amy Grant record at the bottom there behind the basketball, and that's over on the right. That's a Carpenters record up there on the wall of double platinum, and there's I don't know if I could. That's an Elvis record at the very top. You probably can't see it, but
I can see it. Yeah. Everybody watching on Hotel TV can see it as well. It's cool to see these. Let me ask you this, because we're running on time. I'm going to ask you one thing about the Grammys, just the Grammys alone. The accomplishment, the feeling of accomplishment, getting the first Grammy Award, being a part of that process. Was that kind of the flag in the planet, like you just landed on the moon? Was that it?
Well, it was a great honor. I produced 4 albums that won Grammys, and the Imperials were one of the albums that won a Grammy, and they performed on the Grammys. The group that I produced, they performed a song called "Sail On" that I wrote, and so it was a great honor to be there with the Imperials. And I was standing backstage waiting for the Imperials to sing my song that was up for a Grammy, and I look over to my left, and it's Bob Dylan. And I go, "Oh, Mr. Dylan, I'm a big fan. I mean, you've been a great influence on me." He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, this group, the Imperials, are singing one of my songs coming up next, and I produced it and I wrote the song." He said, "Oh yeah, sail on when the water gets high. Sail on when the wind starts to die. Sail on, it's just a matter of minutes till the ship comes to get us, and we'll all get in it." And so, as great as the Grammys was, to sit there and actually have Bob Dylan sing me the chorus of the song I wrote was just an incredible event. But it's a great honor for your peers to reward you with the Grammy.
That's incredible. And we don't really have that opportunity on our side because we haven't won an Emmy or a Grammy or anything. I think pretty soon someone's going to throw us a lump of coal and say, "Here you go. That's your award." I think that's what's going to happen. Now, look, we've brought out a lot of great guests, and Chris, you've been one of our more intriguing guests. That's why we're going to bring you back, and we're going to bring you back, and we're going to probably bring you back again because there's so many layers to the Chris Christian story. I want to thank you for being a part of the show today.
Sal, it's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate you letting people know about the book Grandmother's Prayer and in my story, and I'd love to come back.
Yeah, we're going to have you back. Folks, you can find Grandmother's Prayer on Amazon. And guess what? We're going to see you next time right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
So, you want to be in show business. Do people tell you that you're really funny, you have a great personality, and you should have your own talk show? Many of us have been told that, but we don't know how to get started. It's easier than you think. Let the pros at Cali Vegas give you a free talent evaluation. Call 949-445-1119 and learn how quickly you can create, produce, and host your very own talk show. Imagine not having to sit in traffic every day, commuting back and forth to the same old boring job. Get started in television or radio today with your free talent evaluation from Cali Vegas. Call 949-445-1119 or visit them online at calivegas.com. Make your dream come true today and create your new career and learn how to become a television or radio star with the help of Cali Vegas. 949-445-1119. Call now.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and